In this video, we will continue with the contacts application, and in this case, only the login part or the user part. So we're going to look at how to register a new user and then how to log in that user in this video. So in order for us to get to our register activity that looks like this, we need to go into the login class or the login activity, and where we call register, let's just take the user to that screen. So we're going to say start activity, and then in the brackets we're going to say new intent, and then for the intent we are currently in the login activity, so that's the context, and then going to the second activity, which is the register activity, and we're going to say register the class. So this one line of coding will take me, as soon as the user clicks on register, it will take us to this activity called register. Right, so let's go into the register class, and there is your btn register. So if you remember, this is our register activity, and what we want to do now is to register this guy online. So we want to register him as a new user for our app. How do we do that in Backendless? So let's just go into the register button there, and what we want to do now is to first check and make sure that the user has actually entered all of these fields. So it's called et name, mail, password, retype, and then the btn register there. But for those four, et name, mail, password, and retype, we need to get them quickly. So we're going to say et name, if et name dot get text dot toString dot is empty, if it's empty, or et mail dot get text dot toString dot is empty, or at the same time also your et password dot get text dot toString dot is empty. And then the last one there is the et retype password, where we're going to say get text again dot toString dot is empty. Right, so that is just checking whether the user has actually filled out all of these fields. So if any one of those fields are left empty, it will go into this if statement, and then we can decide what we want to do. So I'm just going to display a toast that says, please enter all fields. Right, and now in the else part, if we know then that the user has entered all of these fields, we must make sure that the two passwords were entered correctly. So if this password or that password is exactly the same password, then we can allow to register this guy. So the first if statement inside of this else then will be to check if et password dot get text dot toString dot trim, if that is equal to the et password or the et retype dot get text dot toString dot trim. So if they are exactly the same value, then we know we can start registering this person. And the else then for this one will be just a simple toast again to tell the user, please make sure the passwords match. Right. Now, inside of this if statement is where we need to do our magic now. So now we want to register this person. We've got every single field, the passwords match, and so forth. So this is where we want to register this user now. So in order to do this, we're going to use a backendless user class. So the backendless user class will help us to create a new user. So I'm going to call it user equals new backendless user. Right, and now on this user, you will see that we've got a few setters there. So there's a set. If you're just typing set there, you'll see there's set property, set password, and set email. So the email address of the person you'll set with the set email, and the password you'll set with set password. For all the rest, we're going to use a set property method. So the set property method will take in as a key the column name that you have in your users table, and the second argument, the value for that specific column. So obviously we will need an email address and a password, but maybe you'll like some extra properties to that user. For example, what is his name, what is his surname, what is his address, what is his ID number, or whatever you want for that user. You can then add by setting these properties. So now let's just quickly go into Backendless again and open our app again so that we can go and have a look at that user table. Right, so I am back at the Backendless page for my specific app, and if you've got more than one app, you can just select it here. So I'm working with the Contacts 2019 video. So if I go then to the left hand side to those to the data part, you will see that in our users table, we've got a few columns there. We've got an email column, we've got a name column, we've got a password column. We've got last login, social account, user status, object ID, owner ID, and created, and also updated. So if you want to go and create new columns for your users table, you'll go into schema there. So you can see there's email, name, password. But if I want to add some new tables or new columns there, I can just click on new there and I can indicate, for example, a surname there. Name the column surname. The type of that column could be any one of these types. And then a default value, if you want to have a default value as soon as an object gets created, you can add some constraints and validate it. But just the normal column will be just the name and the data type. That's all that's needed. And you can create a new column. So we're not going to create a new column for this application, but you can see that we have a name column there. I can also delete this name column if I wanted to. But let's leave the name column to see also how we can add data to anything else that's not the email or the password. And very important, you can also see there's an identity column. One of your columns should be an identity column, which means that this one will be the unique value that we're going to log in a user with, either email or name. Password must be non-null password we're going to use, and that's encrypted by using a method, and we'll see that method now. So it's important that you set the identity to one of your columns. So in our case, I would recommend just using your email as the identity column, as emails are normally unique. Well, always unique. So the identity, set it to your email column. If you wanted to make this a username, for example, then yes, you can set this also as your identity column and then use a username instead of emails. Right, so let's go back to Android Studio. So just note that we have a column called name, email, and password. Created and updated, just add it for you. You can also use them. But the columns we want to set is email, name, and password. So let's go back to Android Studio. So what we're going to call here is the first part is to just set the email. So setting the email, we have the email address. It's called, or we're going to get that from etmail. So I'm going to say etmail.gettext.toString.trim. And now I have the email for that user. On that same user, I'm going to set the password, and this method encrypts the password. So please use this method and don't use the property method to set the email or the password. So now for the password, you can take either etPassword or etRetype. Because of this if statement, they will both be exactly the same. .getText.toString.trim. So that's the password and the email, the two most important things you need to set. Then for any other column that you have, you're going to use the set property method that accepts a key and a value pair. So the key is the name of your column you want to set, and you will remember from backendless that column's name is name. Look at the spelling, all lowercase, and that's exactly how you should spell it there. Then the second argument will be the value for that column. What do you want to set in that column? Well, we have an et name there. Get the text from et name to string and trim. And there we have everything for our backendless user. So obviously, if you went and you created columns for the address and the surname and so forth, you can set all of those properties by just linking to the column here with its value as much as you want. Right, so now we are ready to register this new user. So remember that this user could already exist with this email address online. So all that authentication is done on the server side of backendless. We don't need to worry about that. So the only thing we will do now is to start showing the progress. Now remember, we just pass in show progress true. What happens? It calls this method at the bottom that will set the visibility for the form to gone, but it will set the progress bar to visible as well as the text view also to visible. Now, after setting this to true, or just before it, we can go to that TV load and set the text to it. And that will be displayed to the user with the progress bar. So let's set the text as, because we are doing now registering a new user, we can say something like registering new user, please wait. Now this you should put in your strings XML. That's why it's giving us a problem here, or not a problem, but you can just use Alt Enter on it, say extract string resource, give it a name for your resource, and then that will be placed into your strings XML. So I'm not going to do this now so that we can see the text there and what we're doing. So it's tvload.setText. So that sets the text on tvload. So where is tvload? If you go into the text tab at the bottom, you'll remember that we have a progress bar at the top and a text view that is currently hidden. But as soon as we call show progress true, it will start showing these two and hide the linear layout. So this text view is the one I'm referring to as tvload. So currently it's just saying loading, please wait. So instead of saying loading, please wait, we'll change it to registering new user, please wait. Now after show progress, we can actually now go into the background and do what we want to do, which is in this case registering this new user. So we're going to use backendless, and as part of the backendless library here, there's a user service. On the user service, there's a register method. Now look at the two register methods we have there. This one is for Java, this one is for Android. So Android must always use the async callback. So this one for Java, this one for Android. So always use the method that's got the async callback. So you're going to click on that one. So we need to pass in first a user or backendless user object, which we already have there. We called it user. Second argument is going into the background. So you'll just say new AS, and then it pops up this interface async callback. If you click on it, it opens up everything for the interface with your handle response and your handle fault. And you can see this handle response and handle fault is now the same as what we did in the Room API. And I've shown you there how to create an interface that will do this for you with an async task. So this is essentially what the guys for backendless also did. They created an interface to do this in the background. As soon as it's done, we have handle response and we have handle fault. So now if we enter handle response, we know that everything is done and this guy has been registered. So let's just show a toast to the user, and we will say user successfully registered. And then after that, we can close down this register activity. So we're going to say register.this.finish, which will close the activity and will take him back to the login screen so he can log in. Now, if there's a fault that occurred, this backendless fault there, this object there, or this class extends from the exception class, which means this is a normal exception, but they've added some extra to it. So they added codes and stuff like that. So what we're going to do here is to just do the same as a normal exception, show a toast, and say something like error plus this fault dot get. Now you can see there's get code and get message. So there's different codes on their website also for different error messages. So if you want to do something else in this handle fault than just displaying the error message, you can go and test for different codes to display your own custom messages. So I'm just going to use get message there, and that will display the fault or the error that occurred. And then very important, we need to stop showing this progress so that we can go back to the layout. So when handle response executes, it's not necessary for us because we are finishing the whole activity, which will also finish down your progress bar. So in the handle fault, we're not going to finish the activity because it could be now that this user that you created, if you try to register that user already exists. So then this error message will tell you that, but it won't close down the activity. So the only thing we're going to do here is to start or to call show progress again, but now setting it to false, which means the progress bar will stop showing and you'll see the layout for the register activity again. All right, all done. And this is how you register a user online. So let's run this quickly and see if it works, and if we can be able to register a new user online. Right, so here is the activity then running. So let's go to register and let's enter a name there. I'm going to say Chuck, let's say Chuck Norris. Let's use an email address there. Let's add a password there and a password again and say register. Now let's see if this user gets registered then. User successfully registered. That's all we can see at this stage. We can't log in yet. We'll do that next. So let's just go and refresh our tables online, and you should be able to see that new user being registered. So online, I can see my email address. I am registered. There's the name, Chuck Norris that we registered, and there's the password. Last login, we haven't logged in yet. Social account, user status is enabled, object ID, owner ID created, and when was it last updated. Okay, so just one column here, and that is the user status, the enabled column there. If you go to the left hand side under users, you'll see that user registration is allowed. So if you switch this off, then no new users will be able to be created for your app. And so just keep that one on. But you can also require email confirmation. And when email confirmation is required, users can't log in until the email is confirmed. So if you switch this on and you register a new user, that user will get an email confirmation first. And upon receiving that email confirmation, he must click on a link before he will be able to log into the app. And then that has everything to do with this user status column. So because we did not have that enabled, the status is as enabled. So it can either be disabled or enabled, or the status can be that it's still waiting for the user to actually click on the confirmation email. So you can play around with this setting, but this is require email confirmation, yes or no. Then if you go into login, you can enable the user to use multiple logins. So go and play around with this section. Enable the session timeout. You can lock a user account for, let's say, 2 or 3 or 7 unsuccessful logins or whatever, and then unblock it again. And then go to email templates. On the email templates part, this is all the email templates that's available to you. So there's a confirmation template, there's a user login for the first time template, there's a user made a registration, there's a request password recovery, which we're going to do next or in the next video. So the confirmation email or the template will be this one. And if you do not want to have a confirmation template email or the email for the confirmation, you can just click there and say, do not send email for this event, and then save at the bottom. And then you will see at the bottom the subject you can change. You can change the whole text part of this email so that it follows your specific route that you want to take for your app. So all the information you can type here. And you can also see there's substitution variables that you can use inside of your message, and that will have these values automatically filled out for you. So go and play around with these templates. We're going to come back with changing this templates a bit at the bottom, the recovery and the recovery by link, but we'll look at that in the next video. So you can choose whether you want to display these emails. For example, if the user logs in for the first time, do you want to send him an email? So normally I do not do that. So I will say, do not send him an email when he logs in for the first time. But when he registers for the first time, yes, let's send him this email that says, thank you for creating the account, welcome to the team, whatever. Okay, so that is just a few emails automatically be sent out. Right, so let's go back to our users table. So we created our first user. So now the next part for this video is, let's see how we can log in this user to the app. Right, so let's go back to Android Studio. Now we go back to the login activity, and there is the login activity. So just remember, this is what we've got on the screen. We've got enter your email address, enter your password, and then we click on login. So we need to make sure that the email address and the password is there first before we can start logging the user. So that will be the first part in this section. So we're going to say if et, just sees etmail and password, so etmail.getText.toString.trim. Let's leave out the trim for now. If it's empty, then or there will be if etPassword.getText.toString.is empty. So if any one of those two are empty, we want to ask the user to please enter or make sure that both fields are entered. So let's just display a toast there, and we'll say, please enter all fields. Right, the else part is he entered his email and his password, and we can now log in this user. So in order for this, we need to have an email or the identity, and then we need to have a password. So now, just to make it a bit shorter in the call, I'm going to have variables for this, but remember you can just use this in the coding as well directly. So I'm going to say equals etmail.getText.toString.trim, and that gets me the email address. Then the password equals etpassword.getText.toString.trim. Right, so now we have both the email and the password, and we can start logging in this person. So what we're going to do now is again show the progress, but before that, let's go to TV load and set a message there. So we're going to say set text, and the text will be something like busy signing you in, please wait. Right, so busy signing you in, please wait, showing the progress and the text view, and now we can go into the background and authenticate this person. So in order to authenticate the person, you're going to say backendless.userservice again .login. Now the login again, you will see there's a few methods. There's one that's just got the async task callback with the login and the password, and the async task callback with a boolean at the end. This one is just login and password. This one is login password with the boolean, and then this one is login password async task callback without a boolean at the end. So there's 4 different methods, and these two, the inner 2 is for Java and the outer 2 is for Android. So you'll see this one has got a boolean variable at the end. This one has not got a boolean variable at the end. So we will look at the one with the boolean variable at the end. So we look at all different options. Right, so the bottom one is the one that we want. So the first thing we need is the login. So that is your identity column. In our case, that's the email address. So we have a variable called mail. So I'm going to pass in that variable. That will be the email address. Second argument is the password. Pass in the password. Third argument is going into the background with the interface. And the fourth argument I'm going to set to true. If you're not going to set it to true there, then you just don't use this fourth argument. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this fourth argument now. And now the third argument is to say new AS again, and it gives you that interface, and you just select it. Right, so we pass in the email address, we pass in the password, we go into the background with the interface having the handle response and the handle fault again, and then we have a last argument that we set to true. So what I want to show you now in the next video is how we can keep a user logged in so that the user doesn't need to log in every single time he's using the app. And in order for that to work, you need to have, when you log in the user, set this stay logged in argument right at the end. You need to set it to true. And what this basically does, it's somewhere on the phone for your specific app, it will go and save a value to say that this user has been authenticated successfully. So that's all you need to know for now. On the next video, I'll show you how we can keep a user logged in. So in this case, we are authenticating the user using his email and his password. If everything went fine, it's going to come into the handle response and you have a link to that backendless user object. So now if you want to get a hold of this backendless user throughout the whole application, you can go and declare a backendless user inside of your contacts application. And now as soon as you have logged in, you can link that application class, that variable in your application class, to this user. Right, if there's any problems, for example, that the password is wrong or there isn't, this specific user doesn't exist, then you'll see that in handle fault. So in handle fault, I'm just going to display a toast and say error plus fault dot get message, and that will get me the message and display it to the user. Also very important to note that we should stop showing the progress bar right here if it's unsuccessful. Right, if it is successful, what do we want to do? So I'm going to show a toast to the user. Successfully authenticated or logged in or whatever you want to say there. So I'm just going to say successfully logged in. And now I want to start a new activity, and I want to take the user now to the first activity of my app. So the login part with the register is not really the first part of your app. Your main activity is the one that that will start your whole app apart from the user part. Okay, so let's say that the main activity is our very first screen of my app. So I want to take the user there. So I'm currently in the login class, so it's going to be login.this. Where do I want to go? I want to go to main activity.class. Sorry, this must be in an intent. Let me just redo this quickly. So it's going to be new intent. I am at the login class, so it's login.this. Second argument, main activity.class. Right, so that will take me then to the main activity if the login is successful. And then after that, we're going to finish this activity. So I'm going to say login.this.finish, so that when the user clicks on the back button, it is not being taken back to the login activity. It will be at the main activity. When he clicks on back, it will be out of the application. Right, and this is how we log in a user. So let's just test this out quickly, see if it works to be able to be logged into your application. Right, so I already registered myself. So if I quickly have a look at online there, that's the email address and that's the password. I think it was only 2Js. If you want, you can change the password here. I'm just going to make it 2Js again, and that's the password. Okay, so I'm going to go to the app quickly. There we go. Email address, and then the password, just 2Js there. And I'm going to say login. Now it says busy signing you in. Please wait. Successfully logged in, and I'm at the main activity. Right, and now if I click back, I'm outside of the app. If I click on the app again, now we are at contacts 29, I think it's this one, 2019 video. You will see it goes back to the login screen. And this is what we do not want. We want to let the user or keep the user signed into the app so he doesn't need to go and log in the whole time. So in the next video, we will look at how to keep a user logged in, how to reset a password, and then how to log out the user. See you in the next one.